I think it's disingenuous not to recognize that we are at a demographic inflection point. We have reached the place where the communities that have long been the victims of oppression are now reaching a majority status. And the tyranny of the minority that says we're going to remain who we were because we don't like what we might become.
It's an inconvenience that should not be because of voter suppression. You know, they want us to give up. They want us not to vote. If we got to stand in line for 6 hours, 11 hours, we are going to vote. And so nothing's going to stop us.
The wave of voter suppression that we're witnessing now, which is a reaction from groups that have wielded political and social power to the arrival and growing strength of newcomers. And I think that's, there are people who are trying to hold back the tides of history.
What we're finding is that states that have failed to respond to the pandemic and failed to address the barriers that voters face, these are the places where we're seeing some of the most significant problems. But in addition to those organizations that are fighting to ensure access, we actually have on the other side those who wave the flag of voter suppression.
I try to distinguish voter suppression from disenfranchisement. Where disenfranchisement is the legal prevention of categories of persons from voting. Women were disenfranchised, African Americans were disenfranchised, of course. Voter suppression is placing obstacles in the path of people who are legally entitled to vote. In a certain sense, voter suppression is what you do when you'd like to disenfranchise somebody, but legally and politically you can't quite do it. The period from 1870 to World War I is, I think, still the largest period proportion-wise of immigration in our history. That's when you start seeing all sorts of laws being passed to make it harder for people to vote. You start seeing stricter residency requirements in the late 19th century, literacy tests, requirements that you produce your naturalization papers, poll taxes, very complicated ballot arrangements. You had to demonstrate that you could read and understand a paragraph of the state's constitution.
Ohio put in place a rule that restricted the number of drop boxes to one per county. We've seen suits in places like Virginia, where operatives tried to deny access to absentee ballots before the primary. And then you've got states like Tennessee, where it is literally a crime to distribute absentee ballot applications. It's a Class A misdemeanor.
The notion of democracy is that the people will direct their representatives to take action on their behalf. But when the people fall silent, when they don't participate in the process, what tends to happen is that those political leaders decide that they will insert their own values as opposed to reflecting the values and the ideals of the people.
It's people and institutions and political parties that are threatened that tend to respond by engaging in voter suppression. There's a remarkable parallel, I think, between what happens in the early 20th century and what has happened at the end of the 20th century and the beginning of the 21st. It is not a coincidence. Our current period is one that follows in the wake of the achievement by African Americans of a substantial amount of political power. The one clear commonality is that, to my knowledge, nobody has ever tried to disenfranchise or suppress upper middle class white men. We have been immune to that.
I'm a Black woman from the Deep South. I am steeped in the legacy of voter suppression, but I'm also a part of a rising majority that has the ability to break those systems of oppression and say that we can all come in.
These laws are generally designed so that if you're a middle-class person with middle-class amenities, like a driver's license or a bank account, these are not particular problems for you. But if you are relatively poor, if you're young, if you're elderly, these can keep you from exercising what is formally a right, but basically is not treated as a right. It's treated as a privilege. The U.S. Constitution, as written, says nothing about the right to vote. The 15th Amendment does not say Black people can vote. And the 19th Amendment does not say women can vote. It says you can't deny someone the right to vote based on gender or race. Suffrage was left to the states, and the administration of elections was left to the states.
I think that the pandemic in many ways has exposed how fractured our system is. Just, 50 states, all different rules, And at a moment when we really could have used some national guidance and oversight, there hasn't been any.
I think about democracy as the opportunity to have direct engagement in the values and the policies that govern and guide communities.
I don't know of any country, of any, say, Western European country, any developed country, which has had such pervasive patterns of voter suppression. Democracy isn't very pretty every place else, and there are mishaps and there's corruption, but nobody quite has the problems that we've been having.